Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to QnA with Fred, Volume 35. I am beginning to enjoy these bits of introduction more and more as I go on, because it gives me the opportunity to really lower my voice as much as possible. Don't know what that sound came from. Anyway, so hello, boys and girls. How are you? You can't answer that question, can you? Because you are sitting at home, and I'm sitting here, at my home, completely alone. No one sitting next to me, no one sitting in front of me, no one listening to me as I'm speaking. You're listening to me later. At the moment, sitting here in front of my microphone, I'm completely alone, in a bubble. And that's the problem with the internet. It's lonely. It's very, very lonely. The way people previously have attempted to mend this loneliness is by inviting guests onto their programs. I do that occasionally. I had Fyodor on a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I don't know, I can't tell time. But I'm probably going to have Fyodor on again for episode. It's going to be a while because this week I'm perhaps going to be busy, and Fyodor has had a concussion. I'm spilling the news here. I think he has announced it on Twitter. But he has had a concussion, so he has been all sorts of crazy, out of his mind. And I won't bring him on when he is so childish. So awfully, awfully childish to get a concussion. Which, you're not supposed to get concussions as an adult. It's a child's thing. So I'm going to wait until he has recovered completely. But anyway, let's deal with the future when the future comes. This, here, the moment of now, is all about your questions. The first question comes from Anonymous, and it asked me, have I ever fainted? Indeed, I have. Once I have fainted, and I've been close to fainting 2 other times. But not as an adult, and not because of alcohol. I suppose some people do faint from drinking too much alcohol, but not me. I was a child, and luckily I didn't grow up in those circumstances where I had to take to the bottle at an early age. As a child, I was completely alcohol-free. No, it happened because of... it happened quite strangely. I was with a friend, my mother and his mother, and my sister. We had a sort of a trip together to a slightly luxurious place nearby where I live, a lake, where you could bath. And there's like a restaurant and everything that is. It was a nice place. And we went there, trying to have a nice summer day. It was hot outside, the sun was shining, and everything was fine. I was clad in my swimming wear and having a lot of fun with my friend as we swam around. I think we pretended to be dolphins for a while. That's my clearest memory of that day. And somehow, possibly because I might have gotten hit at the back of my head, or I might have ducked in the water in some peculiar way, suddenly I felt very weary, and like a headache. It's a sort of experience, I come back to this whole alcohol thing, but it's a sort of experience that as a child I didn't recognize, but as an adult I sort of see, yeah, that's how you feel when you have had a bit too much to drink. It was that sense of dizziness as well as not necessarily inherently awful feeling. It wasn't that bad, but I immediately felt this strong need to just get back on the beach because otherwise I might drown. So I made my way through the water up through the beach to where my mother and my friend's mother were sitting down, and I said, I feel strange. And around this time, the colors around me that I could see started to fade. And suddenly I realized, my God, I'm going blind. Is this the time? Is this the time as a child, as a slightly older child about to become a teenager? Is this the time in my life where I lose my vision? That's terrible. I like to draw, and I like to be a visual person. And now I'm going blind. Because everything was slowly fading to black. It's like if you have experiences of editing photographs and images in Photoshop or similar, you know that there's not just one black and white. There's different the different intensities of black and white. It depends on how black you want the darkest bits of the photograph to be and how white you want the rest to be. So you can it varies a lot. And what I felt like is slowly, and the sky and all the bright things around me started becoming whiter and whiter, and all the ground and the bushes, the asphalt things became blacker and blacker until just everything was so blurry and so difficult to make out that I sort of began panicking inside of me. But because I was tired and about to faint, I of course didn't freak out physically because I just wanted to lay down. And luckily, I think for my mother, my friend's mother is a doctor working with children, so she didn't feel that worried. My mother is a very anxious type, so she could have possibly had a really awful time seeing her son slowly dragging himself out of the water and then just fainting. But I do remember being sort of carried to the car that was parked in the parking lot. And then I can't remember anything. I must have fainted at that point. And the next memory I have was waking up at my friend's house on the sofa. And now I was wearing clothes. Somehow, hopefully my mother, I never asked, but someone must have changed my clothes, must have taken me out of the swimming trunks and I remember having a red sweater on, which surprised me because I didn't own any red sweaters, so I must have been given a red sweater by my friend. And we never figured out why I fainted, which is rather surprising. But, you know, I haven't had any other problems from that day. I haven't gone blind. If I had gone blind, you probably would be surprised that I managed to do cartoons. So everything turned out fine in that way. But, you know, it's just something that happened. I have been close to fainting 2 other times in my life. One other time when I was a child, because I was very tired and I was forced to do some kind of activity. I don't normally do activities. It's below me. It's below me. I prefer to sit down and talk intellectually. Even as a child, that was what I wanted to do. And because we had to do some dance or something, we had to run around, and I was very tired, and I said I had to sit down because I was beginning to feel woozy. And the other time, which was more embarrassing because I was older, I was about 17 or 18 or something, and me and my schoolmates, we were taken to sort of try out boxing. My entire class of boys and women that I wanted to impress, for different reasons, I should say, but I still wanted to be impressive. I wanted them to like me. And then when doing the whole boxing, running around, I felt that feeling again of suddenly things turning slightly black, and I became quite worried. I didn't want to faint. I didn't want any of my classmates to having to put on new clothes on me. I didn't want to wake up suddenly in school with a red sweater, because that would have been very embarrassing. But of course it's also embarrassing just being that wimpish one that couldn't box, whereas all the other boys and all the other girls could do it perfectly fine. I was the one who, it was too much for me. I was like a Victorian lady. I was about to fall down, so I had to sit down in the corner and watch the rest of them do all these cool boxing moves. And yeah, it was quite embarrassing. Luckily, I was the cool kid in school, of course. I was the handsome one. So no one made fun of me, of course. It was a very lovely time, my school years. I took quite some time answering that question. It was my spectacular fainting anecdote. Now I'm going to answer one more question, perhaps two if I answer shorter ones, and then that's going to be enough for this session. And then we'll see about we're doing more soon again. Next question. Have you ever thought about acquiring a top hat? Because I, for one, Think you would look quite dapper in a top hat. No, top hats for me. That's a cliched fucking hat, and I won't allow for it. I always felt as if wearing a hat, that's supposed to be a statement. That is supposed to be a statement about formality, and what you feel men's fashion should be like. When I see a person nowadays wearing a top hat, my initial feeling is that that person probably is wearing that top hat as a joke. That person is trying to say, hey, look at me, aren't I a silly person? Look at me, I'm making fun of this poshness that surrounds top hats. Aren't I silly? Aren't I a joke? I should put on a monocle, ha ha! Fuck off. If you can't wear top hats seriously, you shouldn't wear them at all. I can't stand this insincere appropriation of hats that has gripped the nerds of the internet. So, would I wear a top hat? No. Would I wear a fedora? No. What kind of hat would I wear? I don't know, because there aren't many hats that hasn't been appropriated into this mess. I also have a very big head, so hats for me are very difficult. I like them, and I want to bring them back into fashion, but I can't really find hats that fits my head. It's all the brain, you see. Okay, so answering that actually went rather swiftly, so I have room for one more question. A lucky person out there is going to have his or her question answered. How come girls got stuck with this whole makeup thing? Why can't guys spend all their time and money on trying to cover up dark circles and acne and making their cheeks and lips appear redder? Well, it comes down to what we consider to be attractive in men versus what we find attractive in women. And the fact is, as we all know, women are not supposed to age. According to our weird society, we find aging in women to be almost disgusting. How dare that woman age? How dare she develop wrinkles? Surely any woman who lets her hair go grey without dyeing it is irresponsible. She shouldn't be allowed near children. Imagine how perverse her mind must be. I mean, I don't mean to go all feminist on you guys, but women are definitely expected to be infantilized throughout their lives. Women are not supposed to show any signs of going beyond 30 years old, which is obviously going to be difficult to achieve, seeing as most women spend more than half their lives above 30. But, you know, I think it's easy to say that men has it easier in this regard because men are supposed to age. That is considered attractive in a man. There's a reason why, you know, all the Hollywood films generally has a leading man in his 40s and a leading woman in her late 20s or something like that. Like James Bonds tend to go on for quite some old age before they get changed to a new younger guy. You know, it's kind of attractive in a man to be slightly grey, to have those slight wrinkles, because it makes us look distinguished. And a man who has completely a sort of young, in a perfect face looks, well, girlish. That's not considered the ideal male face in our society. I mean, for a man, it's kind of positive to have a bit of a scar on your face. For a woman, it's horrible. Women get terrified by even that notion that they would have some scar running down their cheek or whatever. But for a man, that just makes us look like we've lived a life, like we're an adventurer. I have 2 scars on my face that I got as a child for really stupid reasons. But my hope is that some women will see those scars and go, oh, look at that man, he's look at those scars, he must be like in real life Indiana Jones. I'm sure he got one of those scars fighting Nazis. Oh yeah, I want to have sex with him right now because I want his genetic material to be in my belly. That is what men sort of think about those imperfections. We think of them as something that makes us more like Harrison Ford. Whereas women would be terrified because they think of those type of imperfections to be like a witch. So, you know, that's why men don't cover up their faces, because our society does not expect men to cover up imperfections. And there's also these sort of evolutionary theories. There's this one thing that's repeated quite a lot, that red lipstick is about making women's lips look like a vagina. There's no way of making that sound nicer. It's just It's this weird turns that evolutionary psychology takes. But somehow that's supposed to, that's the reason why we find lipstick attractive. But it doesn't really explain why some women make their lips blue, or you use blue eyeshadow, because there's maybe I'm very inexperienced here, but I don't believe there's anything about the women's nether regions that is blue. There's something strange about it. I think it's because we're so used to this idea that women wear makeup that we now find it attractive. And I must admit that I do. I find women with red lipstick to be very attractive. And I suppose we just have to deal with it. If we are going to keep up this social game of finding each other attractive and flirting and so on, we'll have to play by the rules. And the rules that we have established through hundreds of years of previous interactions, social and sexual interactions, we're going to have to go by it. So women, I'm sorry, but I suppose you're going to have to put on makeup for a while longer, until at least our society changes in that way that is no longer expected. But it is now, and that is weird. Aliens wouldn't understand it. And I'm somewhat of an alien, and I really don't understand it. Do you understand it? Do anyone understand it? Oh, who knows? Goodbye.